I'd like to say that more and more that we take a look at the slaying of those two horses, Mr. Roy and Smith's horses, is the more we realize that it might have been a politically motivated act, a vicious one and a brutal one. Because here we have professionals from around the Caribbean are also weighing in on this issue, okay? But it seems like we live in a society where professional voices don't matter and is not used in making proper decisions. Now, we had our own local, Dr. Carter, that weighed in on this issue and added much clarity on the issue, and also came to the same conclusion that a regional former chief vet from St. Lucia came to. So it tells me that Dr. Carter was actually being true to the scientific approach to these situations, and he was not in any way being biased on the issue, because you have, as I have said, a former chief vet from St. Lucia that concurs with what Dr. Carter has said. But it seems because of some sort of idol worship that the final say and the final word is not based on what the professionals say, but it's based on the dictates of the leader of this current administration. Well, if that in some respects is not tyranny, then I don't know what is. And if this is how decisions are made in this current administration, without consultation to people who are professionals in these particular fields, then you see a very dangerous precedence in how these decisions are made. If the decisions are made based on the whims and fancies, okay, and the dictates of the leader of this administration, and some of it is politically motivated, you are setting a very dangerous precedence that will ultimately have destructive impact on the society. So listen what the gentleman, the former chief vet of St. Lucia, has to say on the horses issue.
And if that had continued, whatever happened there should not have happened, because it was put in place to avoid some of those issues where there is a standard protocol for the movement of different animal species. So then you shouldn't get in any way one country having a protocol that differs from the other. It goes again to harmonize all of these protocols for the SME.
Dr. Joseph argued that stronger regional animal movement protocols would establish clear responsibilities for governments, producers, and consumers across the Caribbean. He characterized the lack of progress on harmonization as tantamount to irresponsibility. Whilst Grenadian authorities, including Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, defended euthanizing the infected horses, Joseph maintained that the action was unnecessary.
So there you have it. Just as Dr. Carter said, Dr. George Joseph, a former chief vet from St. Lucia, says exactly the same thing, that the euthanization of the horses was unnecessary. Was unnecessary. Okay? This is the words. These are the words from professionals. Okay? It was unnecessary. So, but again, I told you guys, this was not just about slaying the horses. This was a ritualistic bonding that involved the upper echelon of the NDC and their followers. Okay? That's what this was about. This was a sadomasochistic act of domination. Okay? To prove and to project power over their ups. That's what this was about. It was a psychological bonding and blending of hands in the slaying and shedding of the blood of those horses. That is what this was about. So you have to understand that what you have now is a sacrificial bond of blood, okay, between the upper echelon of the NDC and their followers. So I carefully urge, okay, that that in your dealing now with these people, that you should be very vigilant. You should be very sober, because together they have a sacrificial bond of blood on their hands. And that, my friends, opens up the door for a certain level of thirst for that sort of ritual. So I urge everyone to be careful, extremely careful in your interaction when you're dealing with these people. Okay? Because these things have implications in a realm that you may not even understand. But as I have said, one thing you must do going forward is to be sober and to be vigilant. So I am appealing to, and I urge every follower in Grenada of Judeo-Christian religions and monotheistic religions that you expose to the populace of what is going on here. Because this was an engagement, a mass engagement into ritualism and sacrifice. This is a mass engagement and dabbling into a world of occultism. This is what is being introduced in a very subtle way to the mass of Grenadian people. So again, every Christian in Grenada should come out and talk about this. Expose what is going on in that beloved island of Grenada. You cannot sit idly. Many of you followers of Christianity, okay, actually engaged in the bamboozlement in the last campaign. You were hoodwinked. You didn't realize that you're possibly dealing with some people who are atheists, okay? And you are dealing with some people who are actually engaging in ritualism, symbolism, and dabbling very subtly in the occult. So to shield and protect Grenada from all of this, I urge all you followers of this holy religion of Christianity and all the monotheistic religions in Grenada that you come out and speak against this idol worship and speak against this occultism before it is too late.
Whilst Grenadian authorities, including Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, defended euthanizing the infected horses, Joseph maintained that the action was unnecessary.
Again, Dr. George Joseph maintains that the actions of neutralizing the horses was actually unnecessary. But then you have the leader of the administration coming forward after this was done and saying that he was unapologetic for the slaying of the horses. You have to understand the symbolism and what he's signaling. You don't use these terms in the slaying of animals. It says he was unapologetic. You have to understand, please understand what is being implied here, what is being suggested here. You must see through this. No one uses those phrases when it comes to the slaying of life. This comes across as brutal and callous, as insensitive. The gentleman didn't say, oh, you know, this was an extremely difficult decision to make, but this was done in the interest of the Grenadian people. The man said, I was unapologetic. Yeah. This is a bit of added insult to injury for the parties concerned. Mr. Roland Smith and the people who was considerate and supportive and felt some sort of sympathy for him. This was actually an insult to them. You got to understand the deep implications of what is being done here. It's a way to throw salt on the wound of the people who were collectively grieving with Mr. Rowan Smith. You understand the deep psychological implications of what was being done. It was a way to collectively punish psychologically the people who were supporting Mr. Ryan Smith. That's why the gentleman was adamant and he said it was unapologetic. It's like, yeah. It's like, take it up the rear. That's what he's saying. So the people who were considerate and supporting Mr. Ryan Smith, you must understand, it showed an inability to empathize with a very large sector of the population who were feeling the hurt and pain that Mr. Ryan Smith was going through. And it's just not the inability to empathize with them, but it was a deliberate attempt to crush their spirit. Okay? To sully their emotion. To break their heart. And to have them feel more emotional pain. You must understand. You must see this for what it is.
Yeah, and again, so I'm saying this thing should never have happened, because the disease which the animal was tested for before, that disease exists in Grenada, in St. Lucia, and I'm sure most of the other countries. And it's not a disease that is life-threatening, that is of high risk to human health.
So there it is. The ex-chief vet of St. Lucia said that the disease exists in Grenada, exists in St. Lucia, and probably exists in many of the islands. And it's not some serious threat to human health. Okay? That is the professional speaking. So, Dr. Carter, I would like to personally congratulate you for the courage that you have shown to stand up and speak scientific truths. Kudos to you, sir.
Other veterinary professionals who spoke with Choice TV agreed that equine babiosis is a treatable disease and does not automatically warrant euthanasia. Dr. Joseph also pointed to 3 pieces of pending legislation that he believes could have provided greater clarity, expressing concern over delays in their enactment and implementation.
St. Lucia has legislation sitting, wherever it is, I don't know, Minister of Agriculture or Attention Office, from 2005, we're in 2026, yes, sitting there. The veterinary surgeons bill, the animal health bill, and the food safety bill, sitting there, yes. And maybe if those initiatives were already tabled, he would have probably avoided or prevented whatever happened there. But the trigger was from St. Lucia.
Dr. Joseph's final deduction was that it's unfortunate that it took such an incident to prompt renewed attention to long-standing gaps in the regulatory framework. He suggested that this controversy could serve as a catalyst for advancing the Veterinary Surgeons Bill, Animal Health Bill, and Food Safety Bill, whilst accelerating efforts to finalize animal movement protocols within the CSME.